Okay, we are on the record on 23 CF 170, People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick appears in person and with counsel, Ms. Casey Schnuck. People appear by Assistant State's Attorneys Josh Jones and Laura Keck. And we are scheduled to continue with the jury trial today. And we took up a matter in chambers. And Mr. Jones, is there anything we need to take up out of the presence of the jury before we get started?
No, Your Honor.
And Ms. Schnock, anything we need to take up?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, then I think the jury is getting assembled, and so we will start right at 9 o'clock then. All right, we will be in recess.
Thank you.
We are back on the record on 23 CF 170, People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick appears in person along with his counsel, Ms. Casey Schnock. People appear by Assistant State's Attorneys Josh Jones and Laura Keck, and we are ready to start or continue with the trial today. And ladies and gentlemen in the audience, going to give you the cell phone admonishment again. You're allowed to have cell phones in the courthouse. If you are in the courtroom, those cell phones must be turned off and they must be stored out of sight. If your cell phone goes off while you're in the courthouse, or if security sees you with your cell phone or other device out, they will ask you to leave, and then you will not be allowed back in until the next day. That does not include media. Media is allowed to have their devices out and using those devices. However, I ask the media to wear their ID tags so that security will know that you are a part of media and they will not hassle you. And then after giving that admonishment, Mr. Jones, is there anything we need to bring up before the jury comes in?
Judge, just as far as housekeeping, the exhibit list that we gave you earlier, we need to add one.
Okay.
That would be People's 242. And basically, Your Honor, the Aldi bag pieces that were taken from 2528 Kentucky Road, they're actually two separate exhibits, 241 and 242.
Okay. And then anything else, Mr. Jones?
No, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then let's bring in the jury.
All right. The session of circuit court is now reconvened. You may be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. We are continuing with the prosecution's case in chief, and they are presenting their evidence. And Mr. Jones, do you have a witness to call?
Your Honor, the people would call Gary Collins.
Sir, if you'll step up to the front of the courtroom. And then raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Okay, if you'll come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. And then kind of scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable, and then bend that microphone so it's in front of you, and please speak towards the microphone. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you tell us your name, please?
Gary Collins.
Mr. Collins, where do you live?
I live in Ohio right now.
Did you, before you lived in Ohio, live somewhere else?
Yes, I lived in Indiana.
Based on the time that you lived in Indiana, did you know two individuals by the name of Becky and Tim Bliefnick?
Yes.
Do you see Tim Bliefnick here in court today?
Yes, I do.
Could you tell us where he's sitting and what he's wearing?
He's sitting by the blonde lady, and he has a gray, looks like a gray shirt on.
Your Honor, if the witness has, if the record can reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, please.
The record will reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Tell us how you knew Becky and Tim Bliefnick.
Tim and I worked together at Quincy Recycle in New Haven, Indiana.
After Becky and Tim moved to Quincy, you later moved to Ohio. Did you keep in contact off and on with Becky and Tim?
Yes, I did.
And specifically, did you keep in contact with Becky Bliefnick over your phone?
Yes, I did.
Did you have her contact information saved in your phone?
Yes, I did.
How was that saved in your phone?
Becky Bliefnick.
When you spoke with Becky Bliefnick over the phone with that contact, did you recognize the voice?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that the same person that you knew in person as Becky Bliefnick?
Yes, ma'am.
During the course of the ongoing divorce proceedings between Becky and Tim, did you have conversations with Becky?
Yes, ma'am.
During those conversations, did Becky tell you that she believed that Tim was hiding money and not showing all of the assets he had?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you also have a conversation in June or July of 2022 with Becky?
Yes, ma'am.
During that conversation, did she tell you that she did not want Tim's dad to be around their boys?
Yes, ma'am.
Did there also come a time during that June or July of 2022 conversation where Becky became emotional?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how she was.
She was distraught. You could tell she was crying enormously. She was crying really bad.
During that time while she was crying and distraught, did she say to you, if anything ever happens to me, it was Tim?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you tell her when she said that?
I told her that Tim wouldn't do it.
Mr. Collins, at the time, you were actually a police officer in Ohio, is that correct?
No, it was in Indiana.
I'm sorry. Did you do a police report?
No, ma'am.
Did you contact Becky's attorney?
No, ma'am.
Did you tell Becky to get help?
I told her to get a protective order.
Did you contact anyone on her behalf?
No, ma'am.
Do you wish that you would have?
Very much so.
Thank you, Your Honor. No other questions.
The court has allowed at least part of that testimony over the objection of defense counsel. That objection was made pre-trial. The court overruled that objection. The court considers that objection and overrules that objection for the same reasons that the court did pre-trial. And then Ms. Schnock, you have questions?
Yes, Mr. Collins, I just have a few questions for you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you consider Becky a close friend of yours?
She was a acquaintance.
Okay, an acquaintance.
Yes.
When was the last time you would have seen her personally?
We went to a Christmas party. It's been years.
Several years?
Yes, ma'am.
And when was the last time you would have seen Tim?
The last time I went and picked up the car, it was probably 5 to 6 years ago.
Okay. Would you and Becky talk about things other than the divorce?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And your response to Becky when she said, if anything happens to me, it was Tim, you told Becky that Tim wouldn't do it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And during your conversations, was there a lot of venting going on about the parties' divorce?
Yes, ma'am.
No other questions, Judge?
Any questions?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, you may step down. And then is he released from his subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. So You're free to go, sir. All right, thank you. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the people would call Jared Evans.
Sir, if you'll step up to the front of the courtroom, please. And if you would raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Okay. If you'll come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. And then kind of scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable and bend that microphone up so it's in front of you, and please speak towards the microphone. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you tell us your name, please?
Jared Evans.
Mr. Evans, how are you employed?
I work at Quincy Farm Products.
During your time at Quincy Farm Products, did you have an employee by the name of Tim Bliefnick?
I did.
Were you basically Mr. Bliefnick's boss?
Yes.
How long did Mr. Bliefnick work for you at Quincy Farm Products?
I don't know right off the top of my head, but like probably close to 3 years.
During that time, did you have regular conversations with Mr. Bliefnick?
Yes.
During that time, would you talk to Mr. Bliefnick, or would he talk to you about working out?
Yes.
Was that something he did regularly based on his comments to you?
Yes.
With working at Quincy Farm Products, is that something where people are sometimes allowed to work remotely?
Yes.
Was Tim Bliefnick one of the people allowed to work remotely?
Yes, he was.
Was he also assigned a specific laptop?
Yes.
That laptop that he is specifically assigned, does he share that with other employees?
No.
When a laptop is provided to a person such as Mr. Bliefnick, is it a brand new laptop?
Yes, it is.
So nobody else has used it at that time?
That's correct.
When did you give Mr. Bliefnick his most recent laptop?
I'm estimation of 2021 sometime in the year.
Were you contacted by the Quincy Police Department and asked to obtain Mr. Bliefnick's work laptop from him?
Yes, it was.
Was that obtained from his residence on Hampshire Street?
Yes, it was.
Mr. Evans, I'm gonna have Mr. Jones here open what has been marked as People's Exhibit 215.
Your Honor, do I have permission of the court to break the seal and open that, please?
You do. And the record should reflect that Mr. Jones is using a pair of scissors to cut open the paper of the exhibit.
Mr. Evans, Mr. Jones is holding up a laptop in his hands. Is that the laptop that was assigned to Tim Bliefnick?
Yes.
Was that the specific laptop that you went to his residence at 1641 Hampshire Street and collected directly from Tim Bliefnick?
Yes.
That was collected after Becky Bliefnick had been murdered, is that correct?
Correct.
After you collected it from Tim Bliefnick, did you provide it to detectives with the Quincy Police Department?
Yes, I did.
You did not open it,
Did not.
did not do anything with that.
No, did not.
Do you see Tim Bliefnick here in court today?
I do.
Could you tell us where he's sitting, what he's wearing?
Kind of a brown pullover at the end of the bench there.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
The record shall reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Your Honor, I'd ask that People's Exhibit 215 be admitted into evidence, please.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. No other questions.
Questions, Ms. Schnock?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Evans, I just have a few questions for you, okay?
Yep.
Did Tim ever work for you in any other capacity at Quincy Recycle?
Yes.
Okay, and when was that?
I would have to, you want me to give you some estimations of what I think I remember? Or,
That would be fine.
yeah, maybe 2004-ish, maybe 5-ish, somewhere right in there through 2011 or 12-ish, somewhere in there.
All right, and was this current position that he had with you the first position where he was given the latitude to work from home?
Yes.
Okay, and did that start in 2021?
It really started with the day that he came to work for Quincy Farm Products, which I'd have to give you his date. His
Okay.
start date, I don't know the exact.
All right, so he's always had the latitude to do that with you,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
And he did not start off working in an office and then move over to working remotely, correct?
Correct.
And was he still working remotely in February of 2023?
Correct.
Okay, and the week of Rebecca's death, was there anything unusual with respect to the business activity that you were aware that Tim was doing?
No.
He wasn't asking off for work?
He did not.
Okay, he was not asking for a leave of absence for any particular reason?
No.
He was not missing meetings?
No.
He was not showing up late to work meetings or events or anything like that?
No.
Did he seem stressed or any more distressed than you had already seen him to be during that time?
No.
No other questions, Judge?
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
You may step down. Be
We
free
would release him from his subpoena, Your Honor.
Ms. Schnock.
No objection.
All right, you're free to go.
People would call it Mark Sheftick. I didn't say that.
I'm sorry, who?
Mark Sheftick.
Sir, if you'll step up to the front of the courtroom. And then raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in a cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, and if you'll step around here and have a seat right here in this chair. And then kind of scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable and bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone, please. You may inquire.
Can you tell me your name, please?
My name is Mark, M-A-R-K, Sheftick, S-H-E-F-T-I-C-K.
You know what, it sounds like you've done this before. What do you do for a living?
I work for the Illinois State Police in the Digital Crimes Unit. I'm a digital forensic examiner.
What is a digital forensic examiner?
Our jobs are to, we receive in digital evidence from investigators that will submit to our office, and then we will process that evidence for anything of evidentiary value to investigators.
In layman's terms, they give you computers and cell phones, and you get information off of computers and cell phones?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get any special training for that, any certifications to know how to do those things?
Yes, I've received about 600 hours of training and have gotten a certification from the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists, which is the BCFE. It is the Basic Computer Forensic Examiner.
And how long have you been a digital forensic examiner?
I've been doing this job for about 6 years come July.
I want to talk to you in a general sense about how that process process works. Let's say, for example, a police officer or a detective gives you a computer and asks you to download the files from that computer for him so that he can examine them. How do you do that? What do you do?
So to start with, it will have been submitted to our office and will be in our vault. So I will receive the evidence from our vault custodian. I'll open the evidence packaging. I'll typically examine the device and record any information like manufacturer, model of the device, serial numbers that might be external. And then for computers especially, we'll remove the storage device, a hard drive or a solid state drive that might be internal. And then I will connect that to something known as a write blocker, which is a physical device that will prevent any data from being written back to the evidence.
When you
And
say, I'm going to stop you there. So you say a write blocker and it prevents information being written back to the hard drive or the solid state drive?
yes.
Tell me what that means.
So if our job is to examine the data on the device, when you hook up hard drives to computers, normally the operating system will write data to that drive. It's trying to record what the drive is and then register it to its own system. So we will use write blockers to prevent data from being written to the drive. We don't want to alter any data on the evidence. We just want to make a copy that we then will examine later.
If I was using a different type of evidence, let's say it's a physical piece of evidence, would it be like wearing gloves when you're touching the physical evidence, so you're putting DNA or fingerprints on that physical piece of evidence?
That would be a similar type activity, yes.
In this case, were you given a computer and asked to download the information off that computer?
Yes, I was.
And you told us you would have attached it to a write blocker that would prevent information being written onto it, is that right?
Correct.
After you attach it to a write blocker, tell me how you download that information. Is there a program that you use, or what steps do you use to get the information off of that computer?
We have several programs that we use. In this case, I used a program by a company named Magnet, and the program itself was Axiom, A-X-I-O-M, and it is a forensic software suite that can read data from devices connected to a write blocker and then process them through for the information that we can then export out in a package that we can give to our investigators.
And did you do that in this case? You attached the computer to the write blocker to that Axiom, is that right? That
Yes.
Axiom program, and then the Axiom program downloaded that information, you put it on a hard drive and provided that hard drive to the Quincy Police Department.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been introduced as evidence as People's Exhibit 215, and I'll show it to you first in the bag. Are there some markings on that you know that this was something that you examined?
Yes, when I sealed the packaging up after examination, I included my initials and my ID number.
And I'm going to take out what was in 215. Is that the computer that you were asked to examine?
It appears to be, yes.
After you attached it to the write blocker and the Axiom program, did you confirm that both the write blocker and the Axiom program were working appropriately, doing what they were supposed to do?
Yes, the reports generated by the program will use a value called a hash value, which is a mathematical algorithm that takes a large set of data and condenses it down to a much smaller value. And so it compares the original to the acquisition. And if they match, then we know that it's a valid acquisition.
And in this case, did that match?
Yes,
And was it then therefore a valid acquisition?
yes,
After you confirmed that it was a valid acquisition, did you then put that information on a hard drive that could be provided to the Quincy Police Department to examine?
yes.
And Your Honor, I have in my hand People's 162, if I could approach the witness.
You may.
On People's 162, it's an exhibit number, lab number of 227, and it says one sealed envelope with verbatim store and go 1 terabyte external hard drive. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes, that's the description of the drive.
And Your Honor, if I could have permission to open that and show him the hard drive.
You may.
And again, for the record, I'm just cutting open the packaging that that hard drive is included in. And is that appeared to be the hard drive that you would have put that information on?
Yes, it appears to be.
And in fact, just a few days ago, did we have a meeting over Zoom where we opened that hard drive with you and showed you the files that were on the hard drive?
Yes.
And were those in fact the files that you put on there?
Yes.
Now, I want to be specific on this hard drive. There are multiple files on this hard drive, correct?
Correct.
Specifically in this regard, the information that you put on this hard drive that relates to this laptop is under exhibit number 47, is that correct?
Yes.
So if you open up this hard drive and you look for exhibit 47, that's where the information from this laptop is found.
Yes.
And there's some other information on this that relates to a cell phone that we'll talk about with a different witness, fair to say?
Yes.
Your Honor, we would ask that Peoples 162 be admitted into evidence at this point, Your Honor.
Ms. Schnock, any objection?
No.
The court is going to admit 162 that contains the exhibit number 47. The court will admit that. If there's other information on there, we need a foundation
apologize.
for that.
I apologize, Your Honor, we're only talking about exhibit 47 on 160.
Okay.
That's
That will be admitted.
Sorry, I do have one more set of questions. That information, you looked at some of the information on that computer, is that right?
Yes.
Do you know what UTC time is?
Yeah, it stands for Universal Time Code.
I'm going to stop you there because yesterday we got this really long explanation of UTC. Is UTC -6 to get to Quincy time, Central time,
It is.
if it's not daylight savings?
Yeah. Daylight savings is when it shifts.
But that's what it is. UTC time -6 gets to Quincy time specifically for February 23rd if it's not in daylight savings time, correct?
Yes.
The files on that computer are in, or some of them are in UTC time, is that correct?
Yes.
Some of them are not, and you can look at the files to determine what's on UTC time and what's not.
Yes.
And it's clear on those files which ones are in UTC and which ones are not, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all the questions I have.
Cross, Ms. Schnock.
Thank you, sir. I just have a few questions for you, okay? When you did your specific, I guess, data dump in this matter, were you given any specific direction or parameters on what to pull off of that computer?
No, for an acquisition, it pulls everything on the drive. It's called a bit-for-bit copy, so it should be every bit of data on the storage device will come off to the acquisition.
Okay, so essentially you're making a copy of everything that was on the device given to you, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it's a digital copy?
Yes.
Fair, okay. No other questions, Judge?
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down, and I believe you're free to go. Mr. Jones, is he free to go?
He is. I think he's given our next witness a ride back, though, so we should probably
Okay.
wait for him.
All right. Well, that's up to you, sir.
People would call Kip Bauman to the stand.
Sir, if you could step up to the front of the courtroom, please. And then raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
If you'll come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. And then scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable and bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone, please. You may inquire.
Can you tell me your name?
Kip Bauman,
Can you spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
Baumann.
Mr. Bauman, what do you do for a living?
I work for the Illinois State Police.
What do you do for the Illinois State Police?
I'm a digital forensic examiner.
Can you tell me, in your own words, what a digital forensic examiner is?
Or I should say, I extract cell phones, computers, DVRs, pull the information off, create a forensic image, and hand that off to an investigator.
People give you computers, cell phones, ask you to get the information off them. You do that and give them the information.
That is correct.
Let's talk in a general sense how you do that. Let's talk about just like a simple cell phone, flip phone, something like that. Have you done that before?
Yes, I have.
On a phone like that, how do you get the information off it?
I connected up to something similar to a gray key machine or a forensic computer, and using proprietary software, it extracts all the information, and then I run that through a processor and spit that out to the investigator.
Now, if a if the cell phone has a passcode, does that make it more difficult to get the information off of it?
Yes, it does.
Explain that for me.
What the gray key machine will do is attempt a passcode about once a minute to every 10.5 minutes, depending upon the phone. And it's just a random set of numbers, anywhere from a 4-digit to a 6-digit number. And if it hits it, great. If not, it moves on to the next number.
So basically, the computer's trying every passcode, and if it gets one, great, and if not, it just keeps moving on.
That is correct.
Have you heard that called a brute force attack?
Yes, it is.
The newer the cell phone is, the more difficult it is to get into. Is that right?
That is correct.
In this case, were you given a cell phone, specifically People's Exhibit 218, which has already been introduced into evidence? It is lab number 111. Were you given that cell phone?
Yes, I was.
What kind of cell phone is that?
I believe that's an iPhone 13, I think.
Was it passcode protected?
Yes, it was.
So if you don't have the passcode, you can't get onto that phone.
That is correct.
Did you have the passcode when you were first given that phone?
Not really, no.
In the course of your investigation, did you attach that phone to Gray Key to start that process?
Yes, I did.
In the course of your investigation, were you also given an iPad?
Yes.
And did you do the same thing with the iPad and attach that to the Gray Key brute force machine?
Yes.
The iPad was an older model,
Correct.
and when you attached it to Gray Key, were you successful in getting a passcode for that iPad?
Yes, I was.
When you got the number for that iPad, did you say, hey, let's give it a shot and see if it works on the phone?
Yes, quite a few times that a person will use the same passcode on multiple devices.
Did you use it on that phone?
Yes, I did.
Did that passcode work?
Yes, it did.
At which point you were able to get into the phone?
That is correct.
Once you get into the phone, tell me the process of how you download the information off that phone.
Once I connect the phone, the unlocked phone, to the Gray Key device, it does its little magic stuff and spits out an exact image of what is on that phone.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because magic little stuff. The magic little stuff, that's proprietary information that you've signed a non-disclosure agreement. Illinois State Police have signed a non-disclosure agreement with Gray Key where you are not allowed to disclose the magic stuff that it does to get that information.
That is correct.
But once it does its magic stuff, you get that information, what do you do with it?
Because what it pulls off are databases, relational databases, and images. We run that through a processor which links all those databases together. It puts them into a very nice user format and spits that out into a report.
And the report is then provided to the police, and the police look through the report to determine if there's anything relevant to this.
That is correct.
You don't look through the report to determine if there's anything relevant. That's not your job.
That is not my job at this point, no.
I apologize, I should have asked this before. I assume you've gotten some specialized training to do this.
Yes, I am.
Can you describe that for us?
I am certified as a Gray Key operator. I'm also certified as a Celebrite physical analyzer and Celebrite operator.
In this case, after you were given that iPhone, that lab exhibit 111. Did you do all those steps?
Yes, I did. I ran it through, I used Gray Key to pull the information off, then I used a Celebrite Physical Analyzer to make it look pretty, and then gave that report off to the investigator.
Did you confirm that both the Gray Key and the Cellbrite Physical Analyzer were working appropriately, doing what they were supposed to do?
Yes,
And is that a bit-for-bit extraction? In other words, anything on the cell phone is transferred to that report?
yes, it is.
Once it is transferred to that report, you put that report on a hard drive?
Yes, I do.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes, I did.
If I can approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked People's Exhibit 162. On the cover, it says verbatim, store and go 1 terabyte external hard drive containing portable case files. And I'll take that out.
That appears to be the hard drive I put everything on.
And in fact, a few days ago, did you have a Zoom meeting with myself and Ms. Catkinson, detective at the Quincy Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And did we open up that hard drive and show you the files on the hard drive?
Yes, you did.
And was one of those files specifically exhibit number 111? That's how it's listed on that hard drive.
Yes, it is.
And is that the download from People's Exhibit 218 that I previously showed you, this iPhone?
Yes, it is.
And again, we confirmed that that was the same report that you generated.
That is correct, yes.
Your Honor, we'd ask that People's Exhibit 162, specifically Exhibit 111, that file on this hard drive, be admitted into evidence.
Ms. Schnock, any objection?
No.
That will be admitted, specifically Exhibit 111 on People's Exhibit 162. You may proceed.
Were you also given People's Exhibit 216? It's lab number 2. Were you given that phone as well?
Yes, I was.
And did you perform those same steps that you've already shared with us on the other exhibit, on this exhibit as well?
Yes, I was given the passcode for that phone up front, though, so
Easier on this phone.
it was easier on that phone.
And once you did those same steps, did you then put that information, that Cellbrite report, if you will, on a hard drive?
Yes, I did.
And again, I'm going to show you what's been marked People's Exhibit 217. It's a sealed envelope with computer accessory stored on a black drive. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
In fact, just a few days ago in that Zoom meeting, did we open up that hard drive for you as well? And did you confirm that the Cellbrite report from People's Exhibit 2, well, I apologize, People's Exhibit 216, lab item 2, is what's on this hard drive?
Yes, I did. Yes.
And again, for the record, that's the only thing on this hard drive.
That is correct.
And once again, that was a complete and accurate copy of the information from the cell phone in this case.
Correct.
Your Honor, we'd ask that People's Exhibit 217 be introduced as evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No.
217 will be admitted.
One last question, I apologize. On the cell phone data, did you look at any of that cell phone data at all?
No.
Thank you, that's all the questions I have.
Questions, Ms. Schnock?
Yes, sir, I just have a few questions for you that won't take long. With respect to either extractions that you did, were there any specific parameters or instructions that you were given in what to look for, or was this just a general data dump off of the device?
Just a general data dump.
So anything that was on that device was then copied in electronic form onto another device for investigative purposes. Am I dumbing that down correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. No other questions, Judge?
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down. And is he free to go?
Yes.
All right, you are free to go if you can find a ride.
Okay.
All right. All right, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the people would call Michael Price.
Okay, and while we're waiting, if you want to stand up and stretch, you may do that. Sir, you can step up to the front of the courtroom, raise your right hand, be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause no opinion before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
If you'll come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. and then scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable.
Okay.
And then bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone, please.
Okay.
You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you tell us your name, please?
Michael Price.
Okay, you're gonna have to scoot
Closer.
up more to the microphone. Okay.
Michael Price.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Price, how are you employed?
I work for United Systems.
Tell us what United Systems is.
We do a lot of, well, pretty much any low voltage work, fire, security alarms, camera work.
You said camera work. As part of what you do is provide surveillance cameras for homes or businesses if people want to have those installed.
Yeah, that's correct.
What specifically do you do for United Systems?
Well, we all do a variety of, we're not really locked into one particular thing.
Is one of the things that you do is install those surveillance systems?
Yes,
And do you also keep upkeep of those and monitor those for people?
yes,
Specifically, does United Systems have cameras installed at a residence at 224 South 20th Street here in Quincy, Adams County, Illinois?
that's correct.
Were you contacted by the Quincy Police Department to obtain some videos from that residence?
I was, yes.
And specifically, did they ask you to provide video for any video that was available from during a certain period in February of 2023 during the early morning hours, late evening hours during February of 2023?
Yeah, that's correct.
And specifically, did you provide them 3 separate videos from February 14th, 2023, February 21st, 2023, and February 22nd, 2023?
That's correct.
Mr. Price, I'm showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 80. Is that in here, the flash drive of what you provided the police with those videos?
That's correct.
When you looked at those videos, did it appear to be that the video was working correctly, capturing what was occurring during that time period?
Yeah, they were.
Was there one problem with the video?
Yeah, the time was off.
Specifically, did you determine that the time was actually showing 1 hour ahead?
That's correct.
So for example, if it showed 1:31, it's actually 12:31.
Right,
Other than that, was everything about the video working correctly?
yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that People's Exhibit 80 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
People's Exhibit number 80 will be admitted.
Your Honor, I have no other questions for Mr. Price. Thank you.
Ms. Stock, any questions?
Just a few, Mr. Price, I just have a few quick questions for you, if not less. Did you verify that the dates that were pulled off of the videos were accurate?
Yes,
Okay. And was this a private residence or a business that this video was pulled from?
a private residence.
And were you asked to assist in providing investigators with any other surveillance video from any other residence or business in the area?
No,
No other questions, Judge?
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
You may step down. Is he excused?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
You're free to go.
Your Honor, the people would call Lynn Breeden.
If you'll step to the front of the courtroom, please. And then raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now opinion before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Okay, if you'll come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. and then kind of scoot up to that table to where you're comfortable and bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone, please, all right? You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you tell us your name, please?
Lynn Breeden.
Okay,
Ms.
I'm going to
Breeden.
need you to scoot up just a little.
Lynn Breeden.
Or not great microphones. Ms. Breeden, how are you employed?
I work at Quincy Public Schools.
Laura, you can't hear her.
Quincy Public Schools.
What do you do for Quincy Public Schools?
I'm the security secretary.
As the security secretary, do you ensure that all of the different video cameras that the Quincy Public Schools are working correctly and are assisting security with what they need?
Yes.
Specifically, does the Quincy Public Schools have a security camera located at the bus barn at 121 North 20th Street here in Quincy?
They do.
And does that security system camera run continuously?
Yes.
So it runs during the day and runs during the night?
Yes.
As part of the investigation, were you contacted by a school resource officer, Aaron Dush, to get certain security video from the bus barn, from that camera?
Yes.
Did she first ask you to get some video from February 22nd and February 23rd, 2023?
Yes.
That was several hours of video, correct?
It was.
Did she then ask you to get some additional video?
Yes.
Was that video, all video from midnight to 3 a.m. from March 13th, 2023, or I'm sorry, February 13th, 2023 to February 28th, 2023?
Yes.
When you viewed that video, were the cameras working correctly?
They were.
The video was accurately recording the area in front of the bus barn.
Yes.
Were the dates and times also correct on that video?
Yes.
Did they then also later ask you to provide a video from March 13th, 2023?
Yes.
And again, that video was also working correctly, is that right?
Yes.
Ms. Braden, I'm showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 177. Does that contain multiple flash drives with all of the video you provided to the Quincy Police Department?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that People's Exhibit 177 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
People's Exhibit 177 will be admitted.
No other questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross, Ms. Schnock?
Thank you. Ma'am, I just have a few follow-up questions, okay? As far as the dates that you searched for, I just want to make sure I have those dates right, that you were asked to search for video between February 13th of 2023 as well as through February 28th of 2023, correct?
Yes.
Were you asked to check for video for any dates before February 13th of 2023?
No.
Were you asked to search for video for any dates after February 28th of 2023?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, and what you provided was simply what QPD asked for, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't look for anything outside of those dates, correct?
No, I didn't.
And you were not asked to look for anything outside of those dates, correct?
Correct.
No other questions, Judge.
Redirect.
Ms. Breeden, I just want to clarify one thing. The specific time period you were asked for was February 13th, 2023 to February 28th, 2023, but then they did later ask for a specific video from March 13th as well. Is that right?
It's been a while. I'm sorry. I can't recall that for sure.
No other questions, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Thank you.
All right, is she free to go? Is she released?
She's released,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
ma'am, you are free to go. Thank you. Who would you like next?
Can you approach?
You may. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take our morning break right now. You will have approximately 20 minutes for your break. So if we'll take our break then to be refreshed for the next witness. And we will be in recess.
All rise. Session is in court now in recess.
Maybe seated. All right. Council, be ready at 10 after the work? All right, because the next witness will be rather lengthy.
I believe the next witness will probably be at least an hour, if not a little more.
Okay, we will be in recess.
Ladies and gentlemen, rise.
We are on the record on 23 CF 170, People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick appears in person and with counsel, Ms. Casey Schnock. People appear by Assistant State's Attorneys Josh Jones and Laura Keck. And Ms. Keck, anything we need to bring up before we bring the jury in?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Schnock?
No.
All right, then let's bring in the jury.
All rise. The session is in court now reconvened. You may be seated.
We are continuing with the prosecution's case in chief, and Mr. Jones, you have additional evidence.
I do.
You call your next witness.
Can I wait for Ms. Keck to get back with my additional evidence?
You
It's
may.
downstairs in the basement, so.
Oh, yes, you may.
It's my fault, Your Honor. I was supposed to grab it this morning,
And you let the lady do it.
and Ms. Keck told me to, and I failed to listen.
All married women understand that, Mr. Jones.
That's why your ex-wife is.
That's why my ex-wife is back there.
Didn't want to point that out.
It's okay, Judge, we were all thinking it. Now I'm ready, Your Honor.
All right, you may call your next witness.
People would call Emily Pizzella.
If you'll step to the front of the courtroom, please. Then raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
If you'll come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. And scoot up to the table and bend the microphone in front of you, and you may inquire.
Can you tell me your name, please?
Emily Pizzella.
Ms. Pizzella, what do you do for a living?
I am a crime scene technician with the Quincy Police Department.
What's a crime scene technician?
I process crime scenes.
What's that mean?
I collect evidence, I take photographs, I look for things throughout the crime scene and I document them.
Look for fingerprints,
Yes,
swab for DNA,
yes,
photographs of the crime scene,
yes,
collection of evidence.
yes,
Did I say photographs?
yes.
How long have you been doing that?
14 and a half years.
Did you receive any special training for that?
Yes.
Can you describe that for me?
I have a bachelor's science degree in crime scene investigation along with numerous years of training.
Were you called to a crime scene at 2528 Kentucky Road here in Quincy on February 23rd, 2023?
Yes,
When you arrived at the crime scene, did you take multiple photographs?
yes,
I'm going to hand you what has been marked People's Exhibit 17 through 68. And I'm going to ask you to look through all those and tell me when you've had a chance to review those. I know there's a lot of them, but we're all waiting. You had a chance to look through all those?
yes,
Are those all photographs that you took of the crime scene at 2528 Kentucky Road on February 23rd, 2023?
there are a few that were taken by somebody else, but the majority of them, yes, I took them.
All the photographs that you observed there, even if you didn't take them yourself, do they accurately show what you observed at the crime scene in each of those photos?
Yes,
Your Honor, we'd ask that People's Exhibits 17 through 68 be admitted into evidence. Actually, I think some of them already have been, but the ones that haven't been, we'd ask that those be admitted into evidence and then leave to publish those with this witness in a presentation.
Ms. Schnock, you've had an opportunity to see those pre-trial, correct?
I have, Your Honor.
And do you have any objection to any of those exhibits?
No.
All right. 17 through 68 will all be admitted.
'25, 28 Kentucky, Mr. Chairman. If you go to the first slide. Ms. Pizzella, what are we looking at here?
this is a diagram of the second floor of the residence at 2528 Kentucky Road.
Does it appear to be, I understand it's not to scale, but other than that, does it appear to be accurate based on your memory and your time in the upstairs of that residence?
Yes,
Were you also in the downstairs of that residence?
yes,
And did you take some photographs of the downstairs as well?
yes,
Mr. Jones? Okay, that is exhibit number 17. I don't think you
I apologize, Your Honor.
actually identified that, so.
Thank you, Your Honor. If we look on this exhibit, we see several cameras all throughout. If we click on those go to different slides, is that right?
yes.
Ms. Keck, if you could pull up that camera, please. And for the record, we now have People's Exhibit 18 on the screen. Ms. Pizzella, can you tell us what we are looking at in People's Exhibit 18?
Yes, that is the the front of the residence facing south, if you're looking at it, but it's the front of the residence at 2528 Kentucky Road.
Again, just so if we're trying to orient ourselves based on that picture, if we're looking at the house from this position, we're actually facing south.
Yes,
And the front of the house is facing north.
yes,
And it's on, the front of the house is facing Kentucky Road.
yes.
And I believe the next one is return to diagram. And if we could click on the back camera, please. And what are we looking at here, ma'am?
That is the back side of the residence. I would be facing a northern direction as I took that photograph, but that would be facing a southern direction.
And Your Honor, for the record, that would be People's Exhibit number 19 that is currently on the screen. Ms. Pizzella, in looking at this photograph, do you notice anything broken in this photograph?
Yes,
And can you tell us what we see that's broken?
the second story window.
If I put a laser pointer on this area right there, is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
Can you go to the next slide, please, Ms. Gray? For the record, it's People's Exhibit 20. And again, Ms. Pizzella, what are we looking at here?
that would be the west side of the residence, kind of a patio area.
And specifically, was there something unusual in this patio area that you noticed?
Yes,
And what is that?
there was a chair removed, appeared to be removed from the table area and placed against the side of the house.
And if I put the laser pointer in this area, is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
We see a patio set of furniture with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chairs around it here,
yes,
and a 6th chair pulled into this corner against this wall.
yes.
Next slide. People's Exhibit 21. Ms. Pizzella, is this a close-up of that same view?
Yes,
And again, the chair was in this location next to the wall.
yes,
And is that how you observed it when you arrived on the scene?
yes.
Leave the next slide. And Ms. Keck, if we could then go to that camera. This is People's Exhibit 22. Ms. Pizzella, what are we looking at?
That is the window that was damaged on the second floor.
So again, if we're orienting ourselves from this picture, if we're facing the house this way, we're actually facing north, and that window would be a south-facing window.
Yes,
Next slide. Ms. Pizzella, again, People's Exhibit 23. What are we looking at here?
that is the damaged window on the second floor.
And Ms. Pizzella, do you notice broken glass in that window?
Yes, I do.
And a broken frame there?
Yes, yes,
And a broken frame on the left side of the window as well.
yes,
People's Exhibit 24. Again, a close-up of that window
yes,
showing damaged frame, broken glass, and shattered frame there as well.
yes.
Next slide, please. People's Exhibit 25. If we could go back to 24 for just a second. Again, if we orient ourselves on this picture, if we're standing on that roof and we're facing that direction, we would actually be facing east, correct?
Yes.
So that's the front part of that window facing east.
Yeah, I'm facing east, yes.
Or, yeah,
As I take that photograph, I'm facing east.
correct. Thank you. And People's Exhibit 25, that would be facing west, the inside portion of that window.
Yes,
And again, we see damage to the frame here and along the frame there as well.
yes,
And there was some damage to the outside part of this frame as well, correct?
yes.
People's Exhibit 26, please. Oh, sorry, back to, we could go to the east bedroom camera. People's Exhibit 26, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
Yes, that's inside that bedroom, and it is where the window is, that is damaged, is contained, showing some impressions on the carpet, along with the damaged window.
Specifically, when we say impression on the carpet, are we talking about this partial shoe print here on the carpet?
Yes,
And again, People's Exhibit 27, are we looking now at the inside of that window that we just viewed on the outside?
Yes.
Again, to orient ourselves, if we're facing that window, we would be facing south.
Yes.
You see damage to the frame here and here, as well as it's been pulled away from the hinges.
Yes.
People's 28, please. Again, are we looking at the upper portion of that window, again facing south?
Yes.
We see damage to the top and the top portion of this frame as well.
Yes.
People's 29. Is this the partial shoe print that you previously talked about in the prior exhibit?
Yes.
Go forward. I then want to go to the main upstairs hallway. Again, to orient ourselves in this picture is in that hallway that we just saw, facing west.
Yes.
And what do you notice in this picture?
The metal piece laying there on the floor that appeared to be from a door.
We could go forward one, please. And what do we see here?
That is a piece of plastic.
It's a pink piece of plastic. It appears to have an S. Is
Yes.
that correct? And that was found on the carpet there as well, correct?
Yes.
And that is, again, for the record, People's Exhibit 36. You can go forward one, please. I believe we're on this camera. Again, to orient ourselves here, we're now facing south into a bedroom, is that right?
Yes.
And can you tell us when you took this photograph, or when this photograph was taken, what you noticed in the crime scene?
I noticed that there were multiple shell casings lying on the floor, along with some wood that appeared to be from the door frame.
We can go, and before we talk, no, okay. And we'll go ahead and go forward. This is a close-up of that door,
Yes, it is.
and do you notice anything about the door,
Yes, it had some damage to it.
specifically in the area where the laser pointer is?
Yes.
You go forward on this, Keck, please. Is this a close-up of that damage and what appears to be damage right to the upper left of it as well?
Yes.
People 40. Again, a view of that door with the 2 points of damage that we previously talked about and a scale to show relative scars.
Yes.
If we could go forward to People's 41. People's 41, again, can you help us orientate ourselves in the house? Where are we looking at now?
I am facing south, looking at that same door that we previously saw. This is just in the hallway right before you would enter into the door.
So the door that we just saw that had the damage to it is this door that's in the upper middle part of the screen.
Yes.
And what do we see in the middle of the screen?
There is a shell casing laying there.
Equals 42. Again, just help us orientate ourselves. Are we now in that hallway facing east?
Yes.
And in the middle of the screen, what do we see?
That's the same shell casing from the previous photo.
And the door that we previously talked about that had the damage to it is right on the middle right part of the screen. Is that right?
Yes.
Next picture, please. People's 43. Again, can you help orientate us? Where are we at? What are we looking at?
I am facing south again, same door, the southwest bedroom there. This is showing a little bit more of the damage done to that door off to it would be on the west side, or if I'm looking at it, the right side.
On the floor, are there some things that you notice?
Yes, there's shell casings, and it appeared to be broken wood.
And on the left side of the picture, by the door, in the area of the laser pointer, do you notice something there as well?
Yes, it was a piece of metal that appeared to be from the door frame.
People's 44, please. Is this a close-up view looking down a little bit closer?
Yes, it is.
And again, could you describe what we're looking at here?
Yes, this would be the floor just inside that bedroom containing the shell casings, the piece of wood, and also the metal from what appeared to be from the door frame.
And if you could help me count, is that a shell casing?
Yes,
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shell casings in this area.
yes,
And then there was a shell casing that we just saw in the hallway. That'd be 8 shell casings, right?
yes,
And again, just a closer view of that piece of metal under the door and a better view of some of the damage to the door.
yes.
People's 45, please. Again, if you could help us orientate where we are we now basically in the threshold of that door facing west?
Yes.
And can you tell us what we're looking at specifically with relationship to the door frame?
This is the damage that I noticed on the door frame, and also additional pieces of wood on the floor that you just couldn't see in those other photographs because of the angle I was standing in. But it shows also the shell casings.
People's 46, please. Again, a close-up view of the damage to that door.
Yes,
People's 47. Oh, back to the, yeah, thank you. Before we start looking at the bedroom and the bathroom area, I would like to talk about some photographs that were taken downstairs, okay?
yes.
Ms. Keck, if you could click on the downstairs. People's Exhibit 30. Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
Yes, it is a purse.
And that was where you found it,
Yes,
hanging on the wall.
yes.
Did it appear to have been disturbed?
No,
Can you go to the next photograph, please? People's 31. What are we looking at here?
this is one of the couches in the residence that had what appeared to be a laptop and a book bag containing things.
Again, if you help us to orientate ourselves, this door here, that's the front door to the residence, the door that was left open at 1:12 a.m. Is that right?
Yes, this room would be off to the west side or as you walk in that front door to the right.
Ms. Keck, if you could go back to the slide 17, the photograph of the house. This door is what we saw there.
Yes,
And so the living room that we saw with the sofa was this in this general area.
yes.
I apologize, Ms. Keck, if we can go back to where we just were. And go forward one slide, please. People's 32, we see a book bag and a laptop here,
Yes,
as well as what appears to be nursing theory and nursing practices.
yes.
Next slide, please. And is this a view of that book bag?
Yes, this is after items were removed from it.
And it appears that there are some credit cards and a checkbook right here as well, correct?
Yes,
Next slide, please. Again, a close-up of that laptop that was found on the sofa and a checkbook that was right next to it.
yes.
Next slide. I think we're back to it. I now want to move into the master bedroom. And let's start with this camera, Ms. Keck. Again, help us to orientate ourselves from that previous diagram. In this photograph, if we're looking in this direction, what direction is the camera pointed?
It's pointed in like a northeastern, but mostly northern direction.
And the door that we've previously seen with the damage on it is this door right here.
Yes, it is.
And the metal piece that we saw underneath the door would be right there.
Yes,
In the middle of the picture, again, can you briefly tell me what you saw or what the purpose of this picture was?
It was to show the damage, or the pieces of wood lying on the floor along with the 7 shell casings and the metal piece that was from the door frame.
And also the 8 shell casing that was up here along the wall.
Yes,
And also, did you notice, or do you notice a piece of plastic here in the middle right of the photograph?
yes.
Forward one slide, please. People's 48. Can you tell me what you see here?
That would be that same door that we have been talking about. Then also it has a cell phone line behind it.
Forward one slide. And if we could go to this camera. Again, if you could help us orientate ourselves in this photograph. In this photograph, the camera would be facing east into the bathroom off of that main bedroom.
Yes,
Were there windows on the south side of the residence that face into this bedroom?
yes.
Ms. Keck, if you could go back to the diagram for me, please. If you could pull up that photograph. In looking at this photograph, again, just to orientate ourselves to the crime scene, these windows were going into that main bedroom.
Yeah, that would be the master bedroom there.
Where we just were.
Yes,
Where the broken door was, the shell casings, the phone.
yes.
These windows, do you remember where these windows went to?
The one towards the east, they're two separate. The one on the east goes into that same bedroom that has the other broken window, and I believe that other one belongs to a bathroom.
Was there any damage to these windows that go directly into the master bedroom?
No,
Any damage to this window that goes to a bathroom?
no,
Any damage to this window that goes to a bedroom?
no,
Only damage was on this particular window, correct?
yes.
If we could go back to the master bedroom. Right there. And if we could go forward one slide to people's 15. Again, if you could help us orientate ourselves on the diagram, are we now looking in to that bathroom and facing to the east?
Yes.
Let's talk about the floor. When you observe the floor, did you see anything on the floor?
Yes, I did.
Tell me what you saw.
Multiple pieces of what appeared to be plastic.
Tell me what you also observe in this photograph.
There is also what appeared to be a bullet hole underneath the sink.
In that area,
Yes,
and in the middle of the photograph, does it appear to be a pair of legs?
yes,
Do you know who those legs belong to, who that is?
yes, I do.
And who is it?
Becky Bliefnick.
If you could go forward one slide. I'm sorry, if we could go to the bathroom camera now. Again, if you could help us to orientate ourselves, are we now basically facing north?
Yes,
And we see, again, pieces of the plastic bag that you referred to us about.
yes,
If you could go forward one slide. Again, pieces of the plastic bag and the victim's body facing from her feet to her head. Is that right?
yes.
In that photograph, do you notice that you're able to see the victim's underwear.
Yes,
And can you tell me why you can see the victim's underwear?
because the pants that the victim was wearing did not have a crotch area.
Did they appear to be designed not to have a crotch area?
Yes,
Did they appear to be designed to make it easier for someone to use the restroom after they'd had surgery?
yes,
There were no tears
no,
on her underwear. Was there any tears?
no,
You go forward one slide. Again, in this photograph, you see little pieces of plastic all over the victim's body.
yes, I do.
And again, you see no tears on her pants or no tears on her underwear. Is that right?
That is correct.
You go forward one slide. In People's 54, is this a head down, top down view of the victim's upper torso?
Yes,
And again, you see pieces of a plastic bag all around and on her body.
yes,
Do you also notice some wounds on her arm and torso?
yes,
People's 55, please. Close-up view of the victim's torso.
yes,
Does that appear to be a bullet hole
yes,
and pieces of plastic?
yes,
Outside of the bullet holes on her upper torso, the clothing on her upper torso, was there any damage to any of her clothing?
no,
Any tears?
no,
Any rips?
no,
Were they disheveled in any way?
no,
Next slide, please. Close-up of the victim's right arm. Is that correct?
yes,
People's 56 is what we have up right now. And again, do we notice multiple small pieces of a plastic bag around her body
yes,
and a wound here to her right arm?
yes,
People's 57. Victim's left arm.
yes.
What do you notice about her left arm?
She appears to have a bullet hole to her hand.
People's 58. This is a close-up view of her left hand,
Yes,
showing a bullet entrance and exit wound,
I can't tell if they're entrance or
showing
exit.
2 wounds.
Yes,
People's 59. Are we looking at now the back of Miss Bliefnick?
yes.
What do you notice?
She has multiple holes to her back.
She was found on her back.
Yes, she was.
Also, do you notice some white padding on her side there?
Yes,
People 60. Is this the face of Becky Bliefnick as you observed it on February 23rd, 2023?
yes, it is.
People 61. Can you tell us what we see in, let's talk about this first. Let's orientate ourselves. Was this bathtub directly to the left of the victim's body? In other words, directly to the west of her body.
Yes, it was.
And what was the purpose of this photograph? What were you documenting?
The projectile that was lying in the tub.
Is this what we're talking about?
Yes,
And again, at the bottom of that, you see pieces of a plastic bag.
yes,
People 62. Actually, go back to people 61 for me. And in the tub, right next to that bullet, there's a piece of a plastic bag as well, isn't there?
yes,
People 62. At this point, Becky's body's been taken from that area, is that right?
yes,
And again, more pieces of a plastic bag.
yes,
And In that area where I'm pointing at, what are we looking at there?
That is another projectile.
People 63. Is this the bath mat that was directly under the victim?
There were two, and this is the one that was on the very bottom.
Thank you. This was on the very, very bottom.
The very, very bottom, yes.
On top of that.
Yes,
People's, and we notice a red substance on that.
yes,
People 64. Is this the backside of that bottom bath mat?
yes, that would be the underside.
And what do you notice about that?
It contained holes and what appeared to be fragments of a projectile.
And again, Becky Bliefnick was found laying on top of that bath mat
Yes,
that had holes on the top and bottom of it.
yes,
And Becky Bliefnick had holes, bullet holes on the front and back of her body.
yes,
People 65. Again, close up of that, do we see in this area a brass shiny object?
yes.
Was that a projectile?
It's a fragment of one. Yes,
People 64. I'm sorry, 66. Again, is that the same bath mat?
yes,
And is this a separate, different hole that we're looking at here?
yes,
And inside that hole of that bath mat, was there something?
yes.
What was that?
That's a projectile.
A bullet?
Yes,
People 67, please. Is this the floor that was underneath the bath mat that was underneath Becky's body?
yes.
What did you notice about the floor? What's the purpose of this photograph?
It contained a projectile along with some fragments.
And was there damage to the floor as well?
Yes, there was.
When we talk about the projectile and fragments, are you talking about this and then these other areas?
Yes,
And the damage to the floor is seen here.
yes,
People 68. Again, a different view of that prior photograph.
yes,
This was the area that was directly under Becky Bliefnick's body.
yes.
What do we see here?
Projectile
And in this area
where it's been damage to the floor.
and here?
Same, damage to the floor.
And here, damage to the floor.
Yes,
And here, a piece of a projectile,
yes,
piece of a projectile,
yes,
piece of a bullet, piece of a bullet, and piece of a bullet.
yes.
I think we're done with the photograph. Ms. Pizzella, I now want to move on to talk about some of those items in those photographs that we talked about and what was done with you as the crime scene investigator, crime scene technician, okay?
Yes,
Let's talk first about the chair that was outside that we saw on the outside of the residence. In fact, I'm sorry, Ms. Keck, I apologize, we're going to put the photographs back up again. It's going to be easier that way, I think. And it would be that camera. And 2 slides forward, please. One more. On the screen, we have People's Exhibit 21. We talked about this chair, right?
yes.
Can you tell me, as a crime scene investigator, what you did with regard to that chair?
I swabbed areas of that chair for possible DNA.
Can you tell me, when you say swabbed areas of that chair for DNA, tell the jury what that process entails. What does it mean? What do you do?
I took 2 sterile swabs, and I had sterile water. I put sterile water on one of the swabs, and I swabbed The top portion of that chair, where somebody would appear to grab it to move it. And then I used the dry swab and swabbed the same area and collected that for possible touch DNA.
Did you check it for fingerprints?
I did not.
Now, is that a decision you make on your own, or is that a decision that you make in consultation with detectives on the scene?
It was a decision amongst all of us.
Can you tell us why you determined, along with the other detectives, that we weren't going to check that chair for fingerprints?
The area that I swabbed would be the area I would want to check for fingerprints also. That could disturb that. And plus, it was outside in the elements.
And if
And
you
the
swab for DNA, does that affect fingerprints?
It can, yes.
So you have to make a call. You can't do everything. You have to make a call based on your training experience about what is the best option that you have to find the best possible evidence.
Yes.
And that's what you chose to do, and again, in consultation with the detective.
Yes.
Those swabs were sent to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab for analysis, is that right?
Yes, they were.
If we could go back to the diagram. If we could go to that case. And go forward a slide. People's Exhibit 23 is on the screen now, and we're looking at the window that appears to be damaged and broken, right?
Yes.
Was that window seized, taken into evidence?
Yes, it was.
Tell me how that happened. Tell me how that was done.
It was removed.
The window and then the door, the window frame as well, correct?
Yes.
And once that window and window frame were removed, they were taken where?
Back to the station.
And at that point, they were sent to?
The crime lab.
And the crime lab was asked to do an analysis for tool marks on that window, is that right?
That is correct.
Was it the crime lab also asked to run other tests on that window?
Yes.
They were asked to run fingerprints?
Yes, they were.
Were they asked to do anything else?
No.
Fingerprints and tool marks?
Yes.
Again, that was not swabbed for DNA?
No.
Again, was that done in consultation with detectives because we have to make choices about what we can do?
Yes.
Back to the diagram. If we could go to that photograph. And forward one, please. One more. One more. One more. In People's Exhibit 41, was that that's a shell casing that you took into evidence, is that right?
Yes.
And then the other 7 shell casings that we previously saw, you collected those as well, correct?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to hand you what's been previously marked as People's 90 through 97 shell casings. And 190 through 197. And I'm going to ask you to take a look at those and tell me what they are.
Those are the 8 shell casings I collected from the scene.
Specifically the one that we see in Exhibit 41, and if we can go forward one slide. And the 7 shell casings we see in People's 44, is that right?
Yes.
Those shell casings were sent to the Illinois State Police as well for testing, is that right?
Yes.
They were sent for multiple types of testing, is that fair to say?
Yes.
1 shell casing was sent to the crime lab for a specific type of testing, the shell casing that was found in the hallway, right? The one outside the bedroom?
Yes.
That was tested for, I believe, DNA, is that right?
That is correct.
The other 7 shell casings that were found in the bedroom, those were tested for fingerprints?
No.
No. Well,
So 7 of the 8 shell casings were tested for DNA, and 1 shell casing was tested for fingerprinting.
Thank you. I apologize. I had that wrong. Thank you. So one was tested for fingerprinting, the one in the hallway.
The one in the hallway was DNA. The one from, I believe it was marker that I labeled D was the one sent for fingerprinting, while the other ones were all sent for DNA.
Why can't all the shell casings be tested for both DNA and fingerprinting?
Due to the small amount of surface there to get DNA, like I previously described, you have to swab areas. It's not going, if you do both testing, it's not going to leave a lot of surface to collect possible DNA along with getting successful identifiable fingerprints.
And if you check the fingerprints first, then that ruins the DNA.
Yes,
So again, you have to make the call.
yes,
Did you make that call in consultation with people from the state's attorney's office and the detectives?
and actually the lab personnel also,
And the lab person as well?
yes.
If we could go back to the diagram for me, and this picture, the picture of the door. The door handle here, was anything done forensically with that door handle?
Yes.
Can you describe that for me? What did you do?
I also swabbed that door handle for possible DNA.
And again, those swabs, did you swab it once? Did you swab it twice?
I used a wet and a dry swab, so I swabbed it twice.
And those swabs were sent to the crime lab for DNA analysis?
Yes, they were.
Was not tested for fingerprints?
No.
Again, because you have to make a choice. If you swab for DNA, you can't then do fingerprints. And if you do fingerprints first, you can't then do DNA.
Correct.
I'm not going to go to the pictures, but the pictures of the plastic pieces around Becky Bliefnick's body.
Yes.
Those items were collected, correct?
I collected some off of the floor, and I also collected some off of the sink.
And I believe those are items 240, exhibits 241 and 242. And if I could approach the witness room.
May.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as people's exhibits 241 and 242. Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
Tell me what they are.
One bag is the piece of the material, the plastic material I collected from the bathroom floor, and the other bag contains the pieces of the plastic material that I collected from the sink or the vanity within the bathroom that she was located.
And those were sent to the crime lab for testing as well.
Yes, they were.
They were asked to be tested for DNA,
Yes,
and they were asked to be compared to other plastic bags that we'll talk about later. Is that right?
yes,
They were not tested for fingerprints.
no.
Again, can you explain that to me?
They were such a small surface. They were, as you could tell in the photographs, they were small pieces of plastic. And swabbing with DNA, you're swabbing that entire piece of plastic, or to try to obtain DNA, you're swabbing that entire piece of plastic to try to yield a profile.
The projectiles, the bullets that we saw.
Mr. Jones, I'm just going to stop you. We need to stand up and stretch, okay? Everybody, take a minute, stand up and stretch. All right, please be seated. Proceed, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Your Honor. You know, I'm not going to go back to the photographs, but the projectiles, the bullets that we saw in the bathtub on the floor, the pieces underneath the mat that was under Becky's body, those were recovered by you as well. Is that right?
Yes.
I apologize, Ms. Schmuck. I'm going to hand her 198.
Okay.
I can approach Your Honor.
You may.
I will hand you what's been marked That's People's Exhibits 198 through 204. Are those the projectiles, the pieces, the bullets that you recovered from the scene?
Yes, they are.
Those were sent to the lab as well,
Yes,
and they were asked to be tested for comparison, firearms testing.
yes,
And I don't know if I asked about the shell casings. I know we talked about DNA and fingerprints on the shell casings. The shell casings were also asked to be tested forensically by the firearms department for firearms testing. Is that right?
yes, that is correct.
There was an autopsy performed on the victim, Becky Bliefnick,
Yes, there was.
and in the course of that autopsy were more projectiles recovered,
Yes,
and they were taken into evidence as well.
yes.
Can I hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 205, 206, and 207?
Okay.
And are those the projectiles, the bullets, that were taken out of Becky's body during the autopsy?
From the markings on the bag, yes, I did not log those in, so.
I understand that, but that's what.
Yes, but that's what it appears, that's what it says, so yes.
Those were sent to the crime lab as well for forensic analysis, specifically in the area of firearms testing.
Yes, they were.
Becky Bliefnick was not tested for gunshot powder residue, is that right? Gunshot residue testing?
Her hands were bagged at the scene, and I was not at the autopsy, but I do believe there's a possibility that that GSR kit was collected. I'd have to refer to my
That
notes.
gunshot residue kit was never tested.
No.
Can you tell me why it was never tested?
There's no evidentiary value to testing a gunshot residue kit that was collected off of the victim. She was shot multiple times.
You've been a crime scene technician for 14 and a half years.
Yes, I have.
You've had training and experience in the area of gunshot residue testing and collection.
Yes.
You know, I was reading the other day, can you just wash off gunshot powder residue?
Yes, you can.
With what?
Soap and water.
Doesn't take much, does it?
No.
Have just a moment, Your Honor.
You may.
Also, in your training and experience, is there a, not time limit, but in the area of gunshot powder residue testing, is there a, not time limit, but a time period where it becomes less and less likely that that testing would bear any fruit?
Yes.
And can you explain that for me?
It's, from my training experience, 6 hours from the time that a shooting or a gun has been shot is the ideal time to collect possible GSR.
And after 6 hours, becomes less and less likely that any test would result in any type of finding.
Yes, that is correct.
I think that's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Cross?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Pizzella, I have some questions for you, so.
I apologize. I had one last question.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Did you also collect a buckle swab from the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And that's People's Exhibit 220? I could approach, Your Honor.
You may.
Josh, what is that?
It's 220.
Okay.
It's the buckle swab.
Okay.
And is that the buckle swab that you collected from the defendant?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, we'd ask that all those exhibits that she's identified and have been marked and referred to be admitted into evidence.
Ms. Schnock. I have 190 through 197, the shell casings. Any objection to those?
No.
Those will be admitted. I have People's Exhibits 241 and 242, which contain pieces of plastic. Do you have any objection to those?
No.
They will be admitted. I have People's Exhibits 198 through 204, which is pieces of the projectile which were collected from the scene. Any objection to those?
Okay.
No, no.
They will be admitted. I have People's Exhibits,
No, no, Your Honor.
okay, People's Exhibits 205, 206, and 207, which are projectiles from the body during the autopsy. Any, excuse me, any objection to those?
No.
Those will be admitted. And then we have 220, which is the buccal swab from the defendant. Any objection?
No.
That will be admitted. And then Mr. Jones, did the court mention all of the exhibits?
Can I ask Ms. Keck?
Yes, you may.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, Ms. Schnock,
Thank
you
you.
may cross-examine.
All right, let's try this again, Ms. Pizzella. Would you have started processing the crime scene on February 23rd of 2023?
I did process the crime scene.
Okay, and what time did you start processing the crime scene?
I arrived at approximately 16, 18 hours, and it was shortly thereafter I started photographing.
Okay, and how long after you arrived did you spend taking photographs and collecting evidence that day?
I'm not exactly sure what time I left the scene the next day.
Okay, was it several hours?
Yes.
That evening? Okay.
Yes.
And did you ever return back to the Kentucky Road house to collect evidence or process the crime scene?
After that day?
After that day?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and after that day, if you recall, what dates did you return back to the Kentucky Road house to collect evidence?
I'm not exactly sure the date, but I went back and I helped assist with collecting an additional part of the window.
Okay, and do you know how long that would have taken when you went back?
It wasn't that long.
Okay, that's fair. I want to talk about the Kentucky Roadhouse first, okay, ma'am? Starting with the window.
Yes.
You said that you observed the window to be damaged, I think on the outside, correct, of the window frame?
Yes.
Okay, and that window was removed and sent to the crime lab for tool mark testing, correct?
Yes.
And can you explain to us that aren't well-versed in your area, what that kind of testing would entail?
I'm not an expert when it comes to tool mark testing, but if you use a tool to open or pry open something, it can leave marks.
Okay, and so is the theory behind that, if you can match the tool with the marks, then maybe you have the tool that opened the window?
Yes.
Okay, and during your involvement in this case, did you also collect several items from Tim's house at 1641 Hampshire?
Yes, I did.
And do you remember the date that you would have done that?
March 1st.
Okay, and what time did you arrive at 1641 Hampshire to start the process of collecting evidence?
I'm not exactly sure of the time, but it was in the morning.
Okay. And do you know how long you spent at his house collecting evidence?
It was a few hours.
Okay. And did you not only collect evidence from inside his house, but also outside of his house?
That is correct.
And did you also search a detached garage?
Yes.
And did you also search through his trash?
His trash at the in the can outside of his house. Yes.
Okay. And there were certain items that were taken from Tim's house that day, correct?
Yes, there were.
And some of those items were also collected and sent out for further testing, correct?
Yes, there were.
Was one of those items a crowbar?
Yes.
And where did you find that crowbar?
It was in the basement
Okay, of Tim's house.
of Tim's house. Yes.
And that crowbar was sent to the crime lab for testing, correct?
Yes, it was.
And what kind of testing was requested on that crowbar?
It was DNA testing along with tool mark analysis.
Okay. And was there also a multi-tool that was found during the search of either Tim's home or his car?
There was, but I had I did not search Tim's vehicle.
Okay, that's fair. Were there any other tools other than that one crowbar that you collected from Tim's house that day?
Yes.
How many other tools did you collect?
There were a few.
Okay, and were any of those, and what kind of tools were they, if you remember?
There were additional crowbars.
Okay, and were any of those crowbars sent to the crime lab for testing?
No, they were not.
Okay, and can you tell us why their decisions were made to send one crowbar for testing but not others?
The ones that we located in the detached garage appeared to have not been disturbed for a very long period of time. The one that we did end up sending that was in the basement was on a shelf by itself and just was kind of out of the ordinary.
And that was based off, and prior to being in Tim's house that day, had you ever had the occasion to be there and see where that crowbar was normally kept?
I had never been in that house before.
Okay, so as far as what is usual or unusual for anything to be kept in that house, you don't know?
I do not.
Okay, and as far as anything being kept out of place or in unusual manner in his garage, you do not know that either, correct?
No.
Okay. Moving on. When you were processing the Kentucky Road scene, you found a partial foot impression on the carpet, correct?
Footwear impression?
Okay. Was there also what appeared to be a partial impression on the bedside table below the window?
Yes, there was.
Okay, and pictures of that partial footprint on the bedside table were taken, correct?
Yes.
And were any of those photographs sent to the crime lab along with the partial foot impression on the floor?
No.
During your search of Kentucky Road, did you take any of Tim's shoes?
Of Kentucky Road?
Or, I'm sorry, Hampshire Street.
Yes.
How many pairs of shoes did you take from Hampshire Street?
There were multiple.
Several.
Yes.
And how many pairs of those shoes were sent to the crime lab for testing?
One pair.
And what was the purpose of requesting foot impressions on that piece of carpet?
What?
That was a bad question.
Yeah.
So the foot impression that you found, you collected several pairs of shoes from
Yes.
Tim's house, correct?
Yes.
And then from the Kentucky Road house,
Yes.
you also collected a partial footprint off the floor, correct?
Yes.
And that impression was actually cut out, the carpet was actually cut out and sent to the crime lab?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And then one pair of the several that were collected were sent for comparison, correct?
Yes.
And what is the point of testing for foot impressions like that?
Would be to see if any of those shoes had made the impression on the carpet.
Okay. And were there any other shoes collected from any other individuals for comparison testing?
No.
Were there any photographs of any other shoes sent to the crime lab for comparison testing?
No.
Okay. During your search of Tim's house on Hampshire Street, was a gun safe found?
There were two.
There were two. And did you collect any firearms from those gun safes for testing?
Yes.
And what did you collect?
It was a handgun from the one gun safe.
Okay, and was that sent to the crime lab for ballistics testing?
Yes, it was.
Were there any other guns that you collected and sent to the crime lab for testing?
No.
Was there anything viable that you found in his trash that you sent off to the crime lab for testing?
I believe there was some that I didn't collect, though, that might have been sent off.
Okay, that's fair.
I'd have to check my, my notes on that.
No, that's not necessary, ma'am. Did you also have the occasion to search a different private residence at 928 North 230th Avenue for any guns or ballistics?
I don't know what residence you're referring to, sorry.
Becky's parents' house.
Oh, yes.
And when did you search their house?
I did not search inside of their house.
Outside of the house?
Yes.
And what did you do and look for outside of the house?
I collected multiple shell casings that
And
were
where-
turned over to us.
Okay, and where were those shell casings located?
They were in containers,
Okay, were there also shell casings that were removed from a tree stump?
not casings. Those would have been projectiles.
Projectiles, and how many projectiles were found in that tree stump?
Multiple.
Okay. And were any of those sent for testing?
I believe it was the projectiles that were sent.
Okay. In all, how many hours do you have invested collecting evidence and sending it off for testing?
In my whole career?
No, in this case. Tens of hours, hundreds of hours?
No, not hundreds of
Okay.
hours.
Tens of hours?
I couldn't put a number to it, to be honest.
Several days?
Yes, I've worked on this case for several days, yes.
Did you collect and swab anything from Tim's vehicle?
I was not a part of anything with Tim's
Okay.
vehicle.
Did you collect anything as far as a sexual assault kit is concerned?
That would have been done at autopsy, and I
Okay.
was not there.
But you did not?
No, I did
Okay.
not.
Would you agree that there have been hundreds of items taken into evidence in this case?
Yes,
And not all of those have been sent off for analysis, correct?
no.
Okay. No other questions, Judge?
Redirect.
Couple questions, Ms. Pizzella. The other shoes that weren't sent,
Yes.
can you tell me why they weren't sent?
They didn't appear to be similar to the footwear impression on the carpet.
And when you were in Becky Bliefnick's house, did you ever see a gun safe?
No,
Did you ever see any, in the upstairs, any ammunition,
no,
any gun cleaning kit,
no,
holster?
no,
You see any Aldi bags upstairs?
no.
That's all the questions I have.
You may step down. If you could hand those exhibits to the bailiff. Let me make sure. All right, Mr. Jones, is Ms. Pizzella released from your subpoena?
She's released from ours, I believe. Casey, is she under?
She can be released, Your Honor.
Be released? Okay, you may go. You're free to go. All right, and then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are all the witnesses we have lined up for this morning. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and break for lunch. We will be back again ready at 1 o'clock, so if you could be back in the jury room about 10 till 1, and we will we'll start the evidence right at 1 if we can.
All rise. Recess.
All right, council, we'll get a little longer for lunch today. If you could be back at 15 till 1 to make sure if there's anything that comes up, we'll have time to take care of that before we bring the jury in. We'll be in recess.